Hey, all right, everybody. Welcome to Military Monday, ClearedJobs.Net Military Monday, where we're going to talk about some good job seeking tips for transitioning veterans. Today's May the 1st, 2023. My name is Bob Wheeler. I'm with ClearedJobs.Net. I'm the host of Military Monday. We do this once a month or so. And today we're going to be talking to Thomas Killingbeck from Government CIO, Thomas Killingbeck. So, Thomas, do you want to say hello to everybody?
Sure. Hi, my name is Thomas Killingbeck. I'm one of the recruiters over at GovCIO, Government CIO. Also do veteran outreach as well. Past military veteran, Air Force, did some contracting as well, kind of in the same atmosphere, and kind of went over to the other side and started doing recruiting and hopefully building that network, building it out, and bringing people on with the company.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about some good tips today about things like working with multiple business units, about the difference between remote and hybrid work. We're going to talk about some job fair things and some when you can start to apply and stuff like that. But if you're here, by the way, if you're here and you're watching us live on LinkedIn, if you're in the live folks, feel free to make some comments. Let us know who you are, where you're at, when do you get out of the military. It's always great to know those types of things about the audience, so you can hit those pieces in there. And Thomas, you had mentioned that you're a veteran outreach coordinator, so that's a job that you do as like a secondary position because you're also a recruiter, so you're trying to fill specific requisitions. But what's the veteran outreach coordinator position like? What does that mean?
So that does. With that, I try to attend different veterans groups when they're having their kind of meet and greets, tap events, things like that. When they want different groups to come in, kind of talk about what we expect, what we're looking for from veteran candidates, and then I try to reach out to different individuals when I see them through LinkedIn who are veterans, what they're looking for, kind of being that idea, that guide for them, what they should be changing their resumes to, what they should expect, and just have them questions and kind of being a soundboard for them, what they're looking for. Because coming out, it's very different from the military to the private sector. The way we recruit, the way we look for individuals, and how you translate your military time to what we're looking for.
Yeah.
So
Do you have a good number of military veterans that working there at GovCIO? Is it a
Oh
pretty
yes, especially within our the sector I recruit for, our national security sector. I would say a majority are veterans.
Oh, cool. And that brings us to our first topic actually, because before we do these military Mondays, I always like to talk to people and find out, like, we want to bring some actionable advice, and we want to make it so that things are, each one's a little bit unique. It's not just the same things over and over and over again. But one of the cool things that Tom and I were talking about was organizations with multiple business units. So like Tom had just mentioned that he works for the national security sector, but he used to work at the healthcare sector. So GovCIO's got, what you said, 3 different business units. Is that right?
Yes, we have our vets and technology sector, our vets sector. We have our health and civil sector, and we have our national security sector. Each one kind of overlaps maybe on 1 or 2 agencies, but they really primarily go into certain agencies. Our health and civil sector, it's going to be your FBI, DEA, the DHS, which all 3 sectors have some work with. More of the federal agencies. Vet sector is primarily the Veterans Administration and a couple of other sectors or other agencies as well. Where with the national security sector, that's primarily your DOD, the different military services, Coast Guard as well, DHS, Space Command, the different ones that are all there. And through that, we all talk to each other. If we see somebody or within the company, if someone's leaving a group, trying to see where maybe they can move over to one of the other sectors.
Yeah, we talked about, from a job seeker perspective, what does that mean? I mean, it's whether it's GovCIO or there's lots of companies that have got multiple business sectors. If sometimes I think a job seeker might think it's kind of siloed, like that you're just talking to just you handle these jobs, but not those jobs. How much of, from a job seeker perspective, is there something that they should be doing or shouldn't be doing in order to, make sure that they're not getting left behind because they're just siloed into one sector? What does that look like for the job seekers, do you think?
I think it's kind of different for each party, but the biggest thing for myself, if someone comes in, they apply for one of ours and I thought they looked good and we talk and realize, maybe it's not an exact match because of clearance or other location. I do know a little bit about the other sectors. I don't know everything that's going on with them, but I'll talk to them about, hey, take a look at our careers page. If there's anything that interests you, let me know, apply to it, and I will find out who the recruiter is on that and reach out to them, kind of giving you that little push on that individual, trying to be that bridge for you.
So
Trying to
you
make,
still got good connections in on the other silos. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, I talked to them a little bit on the different groups. I used to work on the health and civil sector for about 2 years. So I was over there. Still, most of the recruiters that were there are there, and the director who I was under. So do know a lot of what they're doing. They reach out periodically with questions. I reach back out to them, and we just have that little bit there. Yeah, we all have our sectors, but we're trying to do the best for our company. If moving one person to another sector is the best, and that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, and I would say as a job seeker too, if you're coming out of the military and you're not really familiar with the organization, that's one of the reasons you definitely want to look at their website. You want to learn a little bit more about what they do, because the mission can be a little bit different, for each one of those things. And when you starting as a job seeker start engaging in those conversations, probably the more you can know about what that sector does versus the other sector does is only going to help you out, especially when it comes to the initial conversations with recruiters and hiring managers and things like that, right?
Oh, yes, very much. And that's a big part of, I think, with that, the networking side for candidates coming out. Reaching out on LinkedIn, having a conversation, building that rapport, because then, they're going to want to help you move to another sector. And that's the biggest thing I try to do is be there. Someone reaches out, I try to answer as quickly as I can. Sometimes things fall away, but trying to make sure I have that for them. And if I don't have it, trying to find out who can get that answer.
Yeah.
How I can get that for them. And that's the big one. I always tell people, check out our careers page. There's a lot of information there really quickly to see what we're doing. And even our website as a whole, you can see we're a technology driven company. We do other things as well, but that is our primary focus. Everything from help desk, developers, network and systems. So.
Yeah. Hey, we got a couple questions that did come in, so we're going to go a little bit off of our scheduled topic there, Thomas. A couple things. We got some folks that are just coming and saying good information. One person had just asked, how long if you have a TSSCI clearance, how long does that good for after you leave the military? And I know that you recruit for some TSSCI roles, right, Tom?
Yes, I do. That one's a little hard to say because I know things have kind of changed, especially when the pandemic started happening and we started seeing more of the trying to think of it, the CE, the continuous evaluation, that kind of changed a little bit how long things were lasting. The biggest part for that, I would say, is if you've been out for more than 2 years, that's when I think you're going to start seeing it. It might not be active, it might be dormant. The TS might still be there, and the SCI might have fallen off, especially if you were read off. The way the different things happen with that. One of the suggestions I always make to individuals before they get out, have their clearance checked. Make sure everything's good. We unfortunately get candidates who think they have good clearance and come to find out they've needed a periodic review and they're about to lose their clearance. So trying to give them that information, that's one of the first things I tell individuals when they're going to be separating. Get that checked. Do what you have to for that, because that's a really big stepping stool or step for you to move into other positions. Because once you lose that, it kind of cuts off the different positions for us, at least. National security sector is primarily going to be your cleared, but from there, if someone doesn't have a clearance, we can a lot of times push them to the other sectors because they have some positions with clearance, but a lot of theirs are public trust. So we can get you that public trust quite quickly.
Yeah. We speaking of all these things, the clearance piece. The next topic we were going to talk about is remote versus hybrid work, and this is something that it's big. I mean, you'd mentioned the pandemic, and when the pandemic happened, and there was lots more remote work, and now, especially on the private sector, there's so much remote work that a lot of people are looking for that kind of a thing. First of all, what's the difference between the term remote versus hybrid, at least in your perspective and at your organization?
Well, I think, first of all, I think candidates need to understand that it's not the companies that choose if it's going to be remote or hybrid. It's the agency, the client. They're the first, they make that decision. But for the difference in the two, the remote and hybrid work, remote usually is going to be 100% remote. You might have 1 or 2 days a month you might have to come in, and that's going to be about it. Hybrid work most times is going to be a couple days of work in the office a week and a couple days at home. And that can really vary depending on the agencies. I know we've had some that they want you at least once a week to 2 days a week, and that's it. And then we've had other contracts that for the remote side, like I was talking about, where once a month they're coming in for one of their stand-up meetings, kind of like I believe like a scrum type meeting to see what's going on. And then from there, they're working at home the rest of the time. And then with that, I know we were just talking about clearances. The remote and hybrid work, that can kind of be determined by what kind of clearance it's needed. TSSCI, you're most likely not going to find 100% remote work. Hybrid, there's a possibility of that. 1 or 2 days at home and the rest going to be in the office just because the work you're doing. I do know we've had some positions that are secret cleared that are 100% remote. So it always changes, and it kind of really dependent on what the agency's looking for and what they're open to with their information and their systems. So we kind of have to play that with each position and see what they're looking for, and really talk to the candidates and military members coming out about what they're looking for, where they're wanting to go, that type of thing.
Yeah, and this is on the outside. I say the outside, in the true private sector, the ideas of remote and hybrid work are often looked at as a benefit, as it's a competitive advantage for the company if they can do it, if they can make it work, and they might really be bending over backwards to try to find out, how much remote and hybrid can we make from these positions. But I think your point there that you brought up, Tom, was that for government contractors, if it's the clearance, it's the issue,
Yes,
especially with the TSSCI type thing. You just literally can't have a skiff in your house, so it's not something that GovCIO or any other government organization, they can't just decide to make it remote because they want to attract more people. You do have
exactly.
your hands tied by that, don't you?
Exactly. And that's a big thing for us. When we do get a little bit of hybrid remote on one of those type of positions, that's what we try to forecast to people. Show them, hey, this is what we can give you on a TSSCI. This is what we can do. You can stay home, work these couple days, and then go into the office. You have to be in that secure location to do the rest of it. And for some folks, that's a big change for them, especially if you've been working TSSCI your entire military career. You've most likely been in an office in a skiff the entire time. So being able to have that little bit of extra time during the day, especially if you got kids, other things or other activities you want to do, that's a real big plus selling point for some individuals.
So we talked about the remote and hybrid work. We talked about a few other things. Something else that you and I had discussed a little bit was job fairs,
Yeah.
and specifically, how if you're a transitioning veteran, how to go about working the job fair from their perspective, but specifically the virtual job fairs. And the reason I bring this up is, again, after COVID, virtual job fairs have, they've grown in number.
Yeah.
ClearedJobs.Net, we have a lot of in-person events, but we still do some virtual events. As a matter of fact, your GovCIO is going to be at our May 18th virtual job fair. So when you're looking at it from a recruiter's perspective, what is it that a job seeker can do to make that virtual event a little bit more effective for them? Because you do miss out on the personal connection. There's some technology that's supposed to help you, but what is it that, what are you seeing on your end, and how can they do it to make things work out the best?
I think one of the biggest things is having information readily available, because there's really 4 questions that I think we ask immediately when we're talking to somebody in one of the virtual ones, because a lot of times you're kind of constrained by time and how you can do it. But it's, someone's getting out. We need to know where you're looking to be, because you might be at a base, over in another state, but you want to go back to, say, Virginia. And that kind of helps us narrow down, what do we have? And then what your skill set is, what you were doing in the military. And sometimes we get individuals who will give us their MOSs, FSCs, but unfortunately, I don't know them all. So just kind of what the civilian side title kind of for what you were doing would be. And then having your resume readily available. Because a lot of times I'll have, like for myself, I'll have a little notes page put up that has my LinkedIn, our company site, different information that I can quickly put into the chat with them. Hey, contact me at my email here, do this. And having the different information readily available makes that conversation go a little bit quicker, a little bit easier. So it kind of makes it where I can connect a bit more. And with having that, I can then quickly search, oh, hey, we have this in this area, and send you the job description, the link for that. So you have that immediately.
Yeah. When you, on our end, because we're the company that puts together we connect the recruiter like yourself to the job seeker. So on the platforms that we use for the virtual events, there's a lot of information that we ask the job seeker to fill out as much as they can, like uploading a resume. There may be some questions about things like your contact information. Sometimes we ask questions about your clearance level, anything like that. I think one of the things that people talking when you and I talked about earlier, Tom, is the more that the job seeker fills out all of that information, it really is a valuable information on your end, because you're going through and you're seeing these things pop up, and there's these fields that are designed to make it easier for you to begin a conversation quickly that's already effective.
Yes.
And if they don't fill out that information, or they kind of just skip over a few things, you end up not making it as smooth as it could be, right?
Yes, and that's a big thing. I know for with your companies, we'll go in there. Someone pops up. I usually can click on them, see the different information. But if I go in and they're missing a lot of it, it makes it where I've got to kind of step backwards. Okay, let me get this information from them. But if it's already there, I can already go into, hey, this is what we have in this area. This is what we're looking for. When are you starting to separate? How much terminal leave are you taking? Start the different questions instead of having to do those original 4 and seeing where people are at.
Yeah, that's like I said, those virtual events, they really are. They're and we're kind of hitting on it a little bit more than normal on these topics, because, like I said, I mean, we've got one coming up, and GovCIO is going to be there, is one of the companies that's going to be there on May 18th. So when you show up for those things, really be ready to talk. Be ready to chat. Sometimes there's opportunities to talk with voice. Sometimes there's opportunity to talk with video.
Yep.
The more that you can be ready for those things, I mean, as a recruiter, you want to get as much information as you can. And I like what you said, Tom, that you have a lot of, you like a Word document. You're prepared to talk about specific jobs really easily. And the
Yep.
more they tell you, I guess what we said, get that conversation going quick, instead of making it be clunky at the beginning.
Yeah, and I understand for some of the individuals coming to the events, they might have to step away during their lunch, so they're on their phone, not on everything. And I think for those individuals, having that the most filled out is going to be the best for them, especially if they're not at a computer or something like that, because then they're not going to be able to on the phone. They might not be able to send me the resume quickly or have all the information. So I think having that all filled out really helps them to be able to go further in
Yeah.
that conversation. Because I know some of the platforms, there's time limits on how long you can talk as well.
Yeah, I think they're usually like 10 or 15 minutes, because we want to get things going through there, kind of, so that people aren't waiting in line for too long. So you want to have those, you have to have those time limits on stuff like that. But a lot of times when you meet at a job fair, I mean, have you ever met somebody at a virtual event or something like that, and then the bigger conversation ends up being like the next day, like you meet just enough to plan for, hey, let's reconnect. You can maybe send me a different resume that's more targeted or something like that. Is that work for you that way sometimes?
Yes, especially when they connect through when I send them my email address or LinkedIn, we'll have another conversation, be able to actually talk about what they're really looking for. I think that happens a lot of times.
Yeah.
We'll get that initial, and especially for my sector, with it being cleared, we have to check those clearances. So we have to have that conversation and get that personal information to be able to check those. So I think having that, not in person, but that phone call, the video chat, that helps to alleviate and get that information to be able to continue on as a
Yeah.
candidate.
And as far as in-person events go, like I said, I know GovCIO, you're going to be at some of our in-person events later on this year too. Like we got one in Huntsville, Alabama, I think, and I think you're going to be the one in San Antonio, Texas coming up. But when it comes to the in-person events, uh, what's it like as far as that connection that you get a chance to make with the actual job seeker? Are there any tips that you have for those job seekers when they're coming to the in-person events to be prepared for?
Yeah, I'd say, they need to have a little pitch about themselves, what they're doing, what they've been doing, and what they want to do. And then one of the big things I will say, with technology right now, a lot of everything's through the phone at a lot of the events, but it doesn't always work. Signals aren't always the greatest. Having a resume with them, hard copy, I think is a great thing. And don't be afraid to just take somebody's business card if you don't have time to talk to them at that moment. Reach out to them. I know I always got a big stack on my table and hand them out. Give me a call, shoot me an email, and we can schedule another time. Because I know a lot of times there's so many booths, you're trying to hit everything. So I think with that, that's the big part of the in-person ones. Don't be afraid to have that conversation.
Yeah, I think they can be both in person and virtual, have their uses, and it's as long as the job seekers are understanding what the good part, what the challenges are, and what the easier parts are, they're going to be doing even better. Besides the job fairs and stuff like that, probably one of the most common questions that we get, we from job seekers when they're transitioning out is, when should I start applying? That timeline question is one of the most common questions that we get. I'd love to hear different people's perspective on things. To tell you the truth, the it's typically sounds the same as far as the I don't want to say it's a cliche, but it's one of those things that's there's a lot of truth to what things go on. But I love hearing it in different people's voices. So from your perspective, transitioning vet, what are they looking at for timeline as far as when they should be starting to do some stuff?
Um, the way I kind of see it is a year out, don't apply for positions because as a contracting company, we can't hold a position that long. But what's really good is to take a look at the different companies you might be interested in or the areas and what you want to do and look at what kind of certifications might be required. Because I know for us, there's the different security levels that are required for the IT world, your Security Plus and different ones, depending on that. Making sure you have those because that can stop you from being hired on a position if you do not have that certification. And just different other ones. And during that year, don't be afraid to reach out to recruiters, start connecting with them, asking them questions, even if it's just about your resume. Because a lot of us, like for myself, being a past veteran, I like to do that for individuals because coming out, we didn't have that as much at that time. It's really been a lot better now for veterans coming out. But having that, hey, this is what you should put on your resume. Make sure you have all your certifications. Make sure you have your clearance on there. And as you start getting closer, start looking at what's out there. And I would say at about the 3 to 2 month, that's when you start applying. Start looking, start applying to everything that you're interested in and narrowing your resume to the type of position. I know some individuals will just have the same resume and apply to everything, but you need to see what's in that position. What are some of the key technologies they're looking for and kind of design that resume for that.
Yeah, you were an intel guy in the Air Force back in the day.
Yep.
I like to use the phrase career intel. You like just like there's human intelligence and signals intelligence and all source intelligence, career intelligence. And that year out, when you start doing things like going, maybe it's your first job fair that you go to when you're a year out, or you start to looking at job postings, just understand what it is they're looking for. That's that career intelligence. You can start to gather that information.
Yep.
But yeah, 2 to 3 months out is when you can start to actually think about, you know focusing on a specific position. Because we talked in our pre-conversation that, the military, that if they want you to be somewhere but you can't go there because the PCS season hasn't started, or you've got to go to a different class, they'll gap the billet, especially for some senior billets. It's like, well, we don't have a master chief, so we'll have some senior chief fill that billet for a few months, and then when the master chief gets here, we'll put the master chief in there, something like that. But in government contracting, they can't do that, because if the person's not there, then GovCIO is not making any money, right? I mean, it's like you can't just leave a position open and just tell everybody else to suck it up,
Exactly. And a lot of times, the government wants somebody there doing the work. So we're trying to fill it as quickly as possible. Sometimes, we do have that availability to wait for somebody, a month, maybe a little longer. But a lot of times you don't have that. So you need to see who's available, what they're looking for. And that can change, especially for the location. I know some of our overseas positions, those, because of everything that has to be done, can take a little bit more time. So if you apply for one of those, you can expect a month or so down the line, then you'll go over to there. Stateside, they're usually wanting to get that filled within 2 to 3 weeks. They have sometimes they can gap a little bit, but not as much.
Yeah. So that's good to know. I mean, I think the job seekers, that when you come out, the biggest mistakes that some of the transitioning veterans make is they mistake action for progress. They're like, oh my God, I don't want to miss out, so let me start just throwing out 150 applications in the last in a month, and they got a year out still, and they make a big spreadsheet of all the jobs they've applied for, type thing. But if they're a year out, you're not going to get much from those things.
Yeah.
So
Nope.
But yeah, we talked about a lot of stuff, Tom, and I really appreciate it. We try to keep this to about a half an hour. I will say really quickly, if you're a transitioning veteran and you want to really start making some connections, we've got some job fairs that are coming up. One later on this month, or later on this week. If you're in the Fort Meade area, then we've got one but that's just for people with polygraphs. So that's CI and full scope poly, May 4th. And then a couple weeks after that is the all clearances job fair. That's the virtual one that GovCIO and a bunch of other companies are going to be at. And then we've got a poly only event coming up in Virginia on June the 7th. If you want to see more about those, just go to ClearedJobs.net. Look right at the top. It'll say job fairs. Click on that. It'll show you the whole list of things, and you can see what companies are going to be there. You can see the time, the place, the location, that kind of stuff. GovCIO, if people want to know more about GovCIO, that's the website. Tom, is there anything in particular that you're looking for right now? What kind of skill sets what kind of people should be jumping on GovCIO to take a look at your job postings?
I'd say we got a lot of technology positions, and then we have some kind of specific positions as well. I know in the San Diego area, we have a position for Navy personnel with mine experience. So that's always one we're looking for over there. I know in Florida, we have some systems and technology positions out of Hulbert Field and the Tampa area. So we're always looking. But I would say if you're in the IT sector of the military, take a look at us.
All right. Well, Tom, I appreciate you joining us today. It was a great conversation. We talked about a lot of different things. If I'm sure that if people want to find you on LinkedIn, they can find you right. Thomas Killingbeck, GovCIO. You're right there on LinkedIn. They can hit you up. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, it's been about 30 minutes. It's been a great Monday. I hope everybody is enjoying their first day of May. If you have any questions, you can find me, Bob Wheeler, at ClearedJobs.net on LinkedIn as well. But other than that, we're going to let you go, and we will see you guys either at some of the job fairs coming up or maybe next month for the Military Monday next month. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.